right, yep, we are live. Can people hear us? Hello, yay!
Oh, we did it!
There we go.
Did it.
Holy
my
shit!
God.
Anyway,
Auspicious start. Well,
This is what happens when you prepare for a show the morning of.
yeah. I mean, we came in a little hot.
this is what you can expect from the lads. Utter chaos.
Jake didn't have all the boxes ticked, and that's okay because we're figuring it out together.
I had some of the boxes ticked.
You had some of the boxes ticked, but not all the boxes ticked. Welcome to Lads on Tour. What a wild and wacky time. What a zany start to this fucking show. Hi, everyone. So we are the Lads. This is the tour. Now that we've got all the audio checked, I'm very nervous. I got sweaty just then, you guys, because, it's like almost live, but not quite live. But now we are live and everyone can hear us. So you know what? It's Sunday afternoon, I guess, at this point, and we're going to kick off our very first episode of Lads on Tour. So a lot of you probably know who we are, but I thought for a moment we would do like just a quick rundown for those of you that might be tuning in for the first time, who might not know us, who might not know how we know each other, etc. So I'm your host for this episode. My name is Zach Ryan. I work at twitch.tv, where I am the lead community producer there. You might know me from IGN, where I was a host and panelist of Nintendo Voice Chat. I had a show called Review Crew. Did a lot of stuff for IGN for several years there. And this is the very first episode of Lads on Tour, so that's my introduction. Lucy, I want to toss it to you. Why don't you go next?
Hello. Well, thank you for that intro. I'm senior video producer over at GameSpot, where I've been for 7.5 years. If you have followed me from before that, you might know me from Jinx TV, especially if you're in the UK. And also, just are we talking about how we know each other, or each do?
Why not?
So, I mean, Tam, Jake, and I used to all work together. Tam and I still do work together. Zach, we met just through IGN, GameSpot, and now you're kind of stuck with me.
Now we kiss. Wow, that really derailed the conversation. I'm sorry about that, everybody.
Now we kiss. No, and so it's kind of nice. It's even though we don't all work at the same place, we talk all the time, amongst all of us, play a lot of Halo together. And so when I'll pass this to Tam if you want to talk about, who you are, what you do, but also I think how this project came together.
Yeah.
Yes, I am Tam of the internet. That's as much I'm just going to say. I work at GameSpot. I know these folks through the industry, the video game world, and then started off as colleagues. Now the lads, as we call each other. And I do Twitch streaming, twitch.tv/Tamoor. We all do Twitch streaming, so if you want to find our individual channels, you can and watch us there, and I guess I'll segue into what this is as a result, or because it's relevant to that.
Let Jake introduce himself.
Oh yeah. Jake, talk. Who are you?
It's okay. I don't need to introduce myself.
The Podfather.
The man with no introduction. No, I'm Jake. I used to work with, as they said, I used to work with all these people except Zach. Zach tried to hire me a couple times at different opportunities in my life, but I turned it down. I was like, sorry, Zach. Don't
Sorry.
I was
Lucy
really
and Tam
hoping
are just too cool. So
I was really hoping you wouldn't bring that up, but here we are.
You know what?
I'm still awfully sore about that, Jake. So it's a real soft spot for me.
But no, I worked with most of these people. We did a podcast called GameSpot After Dark, and we had a lot of fun doing it. It's still going. It's still fantastic. You should still check it out. But they missed me so much that they were like, "We gotta do something together again." I was like,
let's
do a Twitch stream that I'll fucking break episode 1. Let's go.
I think that's
it's the charm of it.
It's the charm of it because also, at least 3 of us on this are professional video producers, and Tam, you've just kind of been doing all the Twitch stuff and figuring that out by yourself. And so I think it's beautiful that our first stream kind of broke a bit.
What we've learned is at some point recently we were considering asking Jean-Luc of GameSpot.com, who is a technical director on a lot of things. We were thinking about bringing him into the fold and asking him to run this for us. Now I think we're like, Yeah,
We
we're gonna need Jean-Luc.
Now we know. Yeah.
So you can expect the other lad who we had on the bench to be taken off the bench and brought in to help us get this shit. So if you're seeing weird shit happen, we just ask for you to bear with us for now. We'll figure it out for the next one. We promise you, it's gonna be great. It's gonna get better. Soon you're gonna be begging for a Lads on Tour T-shirt, and we'll make one.
Or
one of those ones.
Tour.
Yeah, the Lads on Tour T-shirt. We'll get one of those made. But let's that's what we're all about. We're all about big promises up front.
Well, the thing is, and like this is my approach to, I started streaming earlier this year. Like a lot of it inspired by Tam and just seeing like how much fun he was having with it. But I think the thing about like, and not to get deep on main, 5 minutes into our new podcast, but like the problem with sort of, being on the internet and seeing everyone do amazing creative things is like you have ideas and you talk about it and you're getting ang together and it's like, all right, let's just fucking do this. And then stuff gets put off, in our case, by the fact that Tam and I to move countries. But it's like, you can spend that time like refining it and coming out of the gate with like this product, like that you like, this is all this pre-production. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be perfect. But then there's not really that much room for growth that way. And so I'm kind of glad we have done this in the ramshackle, like, let's just fucking start the thing, because then, we can build it and it's also a collaborative process with folks who are watching along at home too. And it's like, we didn't like that bit, or, you guys need to learn how to use OBS, which to be fair, OBS is fantastic, but also incredibly difficult. And
it's a nightmare software. Like it truly is a nightmare software. Like
as someone who's currently trying to live cut on OBS,
which also is incredibly impressive. Like I don't think people are realizing that Jake is also live cutting this while involved in the conversation. And so,
Yeah. We're all kind of like in our fields to a degree. Like this is going to sound a bit high and mighty, but like it's just more indicator of our personalities than anything else. Like we are perfectionists, and the problem with being perfectionists is if you start something and you're of the perfectionist mindset and you're beginning that thing or taking the first step is hinges or is contingent on reaching that state of perfectionism, you'll never start the thing because you'll never be perfect. And the idea for us is like, we got to the point where it was just like, let's just do the thing, because then we cannot we can't like reel it back in, and we'll be, the car's in motion basically. And from there, we'll figure out how to drive, which is in real life, a surefire way to get you killed. But in Twitch streaming,
we kind of did reel it in a little bit though when we
we definitely did.
With only hearing me, and then we reeled it in and brought it back. But
honestly, Jake, I just thought that was a power play that you were doing. So
I just wanted you guys to only hear me. Yeah,
Jean-Luc is in the chat. Jean-Luc is in the chat. Yeah, and like Jean-Luc, we'll see you next week. Okay, just get ready. All right.
So we kind of scratched on the surface of like what this show would be and kind of how it came about. But I think that one of the things that we talked about was, sort of the idea, like when you work in games media, when you work in the industry, I think that there's sort of this general misconception that like, oh, you work for IGN or you work for GameSpot or you work at Twitch, whatever it might be, like you must have played and seen and read and done everything. And that's just not the case, And I think that this conversation, the idea for this show was sort of born out of the fact that like we've talked about this at length, the things that we've missed, the things that shouldn't but possibly do give us like gamers guilt about when you come to the end of the year and you're wrapping things up and you look back at your backlog and it's only gotten longer over the course of the last year, your games of shame, right? Because it's not just about the things that came out in 2021. We're talking about the things that we've missed for our careers over the course of the last, however long we've been in the industry, decades, some of us, so like, Tam, do you want to talk a little bit more about like the concept, the idea behind Lads on Tour and what we're going to be looking at doing moving forward?
Yeah. So fundamentally, like as a kind of outfit, a crew, I want to say a clan. Can we call ourselves a clan? Just because I want to get it as close to Wu-Tang as we can. I want the RZA mindset for whatever we're doing here.
In all things, the RZA
in all
mindset,
things, I want the RZA mindset. But the thing is, like, we wanted to create something that allowed us to talk about kind of games and movies and TV and many other things, because we're not just specifically talking, like we said, anything is potentially on the table, like music, a short story, poetry, a theater production, a cool piece of art, that kind of thing. If it's important to like us as people, or it's important to the culture, we want to try and experience it. And that is something that we wanted to give ourselves an outlet, somewhere to talk about. And let's be 100% honest about this. Like, we want to build something together. There's nothing quite like getting a few friends together and being like, let's create something together. Let's channel our energy into something, and let's create a platform, where we can bring in our friends. Like, this is our first episode, and we've already said we want to get Jean-Luc involved, and that's like the kind of the spirit that we want to come into this with. Like, it starts with someone like Jean-Luc, and then it will bring in other people, like just to be guests, just to be, experts. But fundamentally, this is built on us talking about things that we love, but maybe haven't experienced yet. So the idea for Lads on Tour is it's kind of like a combination pile of shame and backlog podcast, where what we thought, everyone's got a backlog. Everyone has a pile of shame, and everyone also has a backlog podcast of some sort. Right. So we thought, why don't we combine it into something that's fun? And again, cards on the table. Let's try and figure out how we can do a good way of doing that on Twitch itself. Not like just specifically on a podcast, not just specifically on YouTube, but let's try and lean into Twitch and create some of the fun, bring in some of the fun kind of hooks of Twitch, because we love the platform, we love being on it, and it's cool. And it's got like the thing we love about it is the connectivity to the audience and people who are watching the chat. Yeah, and so, go.
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, even just, this first episode, I'm already seeing so many names in the chat from, like throughout GameSpot, like folks who have been around and just like watched our stuff and always said nice stuff, but also like people who've met through the industry, people who watch our streams, and it's like Twitch is kind of the perfect platform for something like this.
Yeah, so like I was going to say, this is also something that's inspired by the things that we consume. Like, for example, there's a podcast that I often mention. Like, when we talked about this, we were coming up from ideas for it, and it's called Into the Ether. And I know AJ is in the chat. He's like one of the producers and editors in there. And I love that podcast because it's completely detached from the cycle. They very rarely will talk about what is current. They talk about things that they love and the things that they're interested in, and they're not bound by it. So that's kind of the inspiration for it as well. But the idea is we each have a pile of shame. On the next episode, hopefully. So this is not going to be the main format. This is just going to be a Game of the Year style discussion with some other stuff thrown in as well. But when we get into the actual gimmick of the show, we're all going to bring our own pile of shame. This is stuff that we know that we should have watched. We know we should have played, read, eaten. Let's add restaurants to the list, shall we? Whatever it may be, but we just haven't. And we're going to bring that. Each one of us is going to bring our own, and then we're going to show it to each other and say, "Behold, my shame."
My shame.
And then know that we will be surprised by some of the crazy things that we haven't seen. And then what we'll do is discuss some of that stuff and collectively come up with a list of a Lads on Tour pile of shame. It could be, we're still figuring out the kind of number of things, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20, that kind of thing.
100?
But 100. But I think the idea was maybe to pick from seasons, like format is in seasons, like 10 per season or something like that, and then go from there and see how we figure it out. And we will collectively put together a Lads on Tour pile of shame by cherry picking from each other's lists.
Yeah.
So it could be
a list we will share with you guys too.
With you.
So you guys can follow along, and we'll kind of clearly say which episode's going to be which. So, next week, I haven't played a Castlevania game. I imagine that might end up on a list. And so we'll be like, okay, this episode is going to be Castlevania. So you guys will know. You can play along if you want, or if you've played Castlevania and you just want to be like, this idiot hasn't played Castlevania and he's in games for almost 10 years. That's fair too.
I will say that like the fact that you haven't played a Castlevania game is so baffling to me. Like, I'm not really one to subscribe to the idea of like you should be shamed of the media that you miss out, because there's simply too much media that's out there to consume to really have a grasp of everything. But Jake, you should specifically feel bad that you haven't played Castlevania. I mean,
this is the energy. This is Bill on.
So that's the thing. I think one of the things that like I wanted to take out of this like project, out of this thing that we're putting together, is like, being online, there is like a constant feel, like there's a keeping up with the Joneses. There is a feeling of anxiety, especially in like our line of work, that you haven't played, in my case, Ocarina of Time, or like I've tried to, but never really got very far in it. And so what I'm bringing to this is that I want to kind of take away that anxiety and just be like, you don't need to have played everything. But, this is an amazing excuse, really. And like, as you're saying, like if you have played stuff, you get to, see a bunch of people, because there will always be like 1 week, there will be at least one person who has already done the thing and who has the knowledge and who will be sort of guiding that conversation, whereas the others might be new to it. And so it's a kind of way of like, exactly.
Easy.
The sort of cheesy, like the judgment-free zone. It's just a place to kind of celebrate the amazing shit that, for one reason or another, we just never got around to watching or playing or seeing or whatever.
And the idea is we're not just picking things for the sake of picking things. For me, the thing that I want to emphasize is the things that we pick from the pile of shame and try to put together and say, I can't believe you haven't seen, played, watched this. This needs to be there. The objective is we put that on the list because we think it will enrich the other person or the other people. Like, for example, I've never seen, preview spoilers, Princess Bride, for example. Okay. And like, I assume Lucy would be like, you should watch that because it's your sense of humor, or it's got this kind of thing. Like, I would want to watch that because I feel like, I don't know, a month from now, I'd probably quote it, for example. So like, the idea is I would recommend Bloodborne or something like that to I don't know, one of you've all played Bloodborne, but I would recommend it not because I'm staunchly like Bloodborne is the best game ever, everyone needs to play it. I won't do that if it's just me that I believe this is the best thing ever. I would only recommend Bloodborne if I thought Jake or Lucy or Zach would genuinely love this and be enriched by it. So the objective is to not only recommend things that we think are important, but we think the other person will become obsessed by it. Like, I'm gonna think it is like, if they experience this, will they then want to buy a poster, a t-shirt, a figure or something about this thing? And that helps kind of guide us. Like, we want to come out of this enriched by it, if you know what I mean. And hopefully that goes for you as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Serious Business here in the chat has actually just hit something on the head that is like resonates with me so much, because this was kind of my thinking about this when we first started talking about the idea for this show. And that's the best part of finding something awesome, is seeing someone else get to experience it for the first time. And there are a few things that make me feel more fulfilled in my consumption of media than turning somebody else onto it and seeing them enjoy it as well. And I don't mean that sort of like sitting on the couch with somebody that you love, watching something and like looking at them like, do you like it? Just like genuinely having that moment where it's like, hey, you were right about this thing. Like you recommended something to me. I especially feel this way about music. Like, there's so many records that like I love to share music with people and have them say like, hey, this was really good. Conversely, if they say it sucks, like I don't want to hear that. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like that feeling of like, oh, I'm a tastemaker, I'm a trendsetter to this person. Like, I turn this person on to something like that. That's very cool to me.
Yeah,
and he also, Serious Business was also saying like he had never played. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say he. They had never played.
Maria.
What's that?
That's Maria from GameSpot.
Okay. GameSpot Discord, Giant Bomb. Hi,
Nice.
Maria.
Yeah.
That's an amazing quote, by the way.
Sorry,
That's a great quote.
Yeah,
What we're gonna do is in the chat. What we're gonna do is we need to still make a trailer for this. So what we'll do is we'll clip out all the good quotes in from the chat and use it to create some sort of trailer. Yeah. So but get your best trailer quotes for Lads on Tour in there.
In a world.
In a world, yeah.
Before
like
you've
we'll do it.
seen an episode.
Yeah, you've not seen an episode, but just put it in there. Like, I can't believe this. This is incredible. We'll clip that and put it into some sort of trailer.
I did see also Serious Business was saying that they had never watched or never read the entire collection of the Expanse books. Jake already talked about Castlevania. Lucy mentioned Ocarina of Time. Tam, what is something off the top of your head that makes you feel this shame?
That was Princess Bride for me, and it's my eternal shame because I know it's one of Lucy's, if not Lucy's, favorite film of all time.
That's a really interesting one because I wonder what it would be like to watch that movie after 3 decades of hype around it.
It's the one part of our friendship that I always feel shame about. It was like I should not shame, but it's like. I feel like if I had just watched this and I knew it, we could have an even deeper connection. Well, so I do want to get through. Like, I own Princess Bride. I bought it with the intention to watch it, and then life comes at you fast. So
to be fair, didn't Lucy spoil the Dark Tower for you? The last book?
Yes,
I have to bring that up every chance.
I spent literally years of my life working my way through the Dark Tower franchise, the book series. I went through college, most of university, reading that stuff. And I was like reading, I can't remember what one I was up to. And Lucy just absolutely turd dumped a spoiler into a Slack channel one day. And like, I was like, okay.
I will never forget the slow turning around you did in your chair to just stare at me. And I thought it was like a well-known thing because it's like, I'm not going to spoil it here, but I thought it was well-known.
You came at it with the energy that people come at I See Dead People as a Sixth Sense spoiler. Like, everyone knows that. But in my brain, I was like, no one reads this many books into a Stephen King sci-fi, like, weird fucking franchise and assumes the same kind of knowledge. I was like, okay. I've not read the book since. That was the day it died. Like, I just never picked it up again.
Unbelievable.
Which maybe I should. I am like.
I think you've been far enough removed.
Yeah, exactly. So the other part that I wanna like talk about briefly is going back to Maria's quote, which was the best part of finding something awesome is seeing someone get to experience it for the first time. We kind of had that feeling, and we've built that into the idea for the show to a degree. So we're all streamers. I stream, Zach streams, Jake is on and off streaming, but I think he's probably good.
Once.
Yeah, you streamed that.
I streamed once.
How did Radiohead Museum go? Yeah, how did Radiohead Museum go?
It was pretty dope, actually.
Yeah. So Lucy streams.
It was awesome.
Lucy streams as well. We'll plug all that stuff later on. But here's the thing that we wanna make this the experience of consuming this stuff a communal thing where you can watch as much as possible. You can see us experience this stuff for the first time. And this is open to stream us as individuals, whether we want to do this or not. So don't hold us to it. But for me, it's something that I want to do. The thing that we are kind of picking, we want to try and make sure that you can see us experiencing it for the first time. So on our individual streams, we may decide we want to check this thing out, or maybe we even do it together. Like, let's take, for example, again, Princess Bride, for example. If that is on Amazon and it's watch party enabled, I will do that. Like, I will create my stream to be, let's do a Princess Bride Amazon watch party. So you as people can come into my stream and watch me do the homework, basically, and see it happen for the first time. For something like Princess Bride, maybe we all just be like, oh, let's do a viewing of Princess Bride together, and then we'll go away and we won't talk about it much, but then we'll go away and 2 weeks later, or whatever it may be, we'll talk about it. Same for games. Like, if it's a game, Castlevania, Jake might decide, we're gonna check out Castlevania. Obviously, something like Castlevania is quite a big game. It can be a big game, so maybe we won't play it to completion. But like, Jake might be like, I'm gonna play. My next couple of streams are gonna be Castlevania to get ready for the Lads on Tour stream, and you'll be able to be in our chat and see or in Jake's chat and see him play Castlevania for the first time. And if it's like a manga, I might be like, hey everyone, I've been checking out a few manga streams and like book streams. There are people who just straight up will read a book on a stream with other people, or they'll get like, "Hey, everyone, grab chapter 1 to 10 of One Piece, and we'll read it together."
You said a manga, but I thought you said Among Us.
Among Us.
Who hasn't played Among Us?
I will say I have read on stream, and it was for the Radiohead stream, and it went great. I got a book out, opened it up, cracked it open. I stumbled my way through most of the words because I can't read, but it still worked.
Go on.
I was gonna say, Emperor OB says, I do hope food becomes a part of it at some point. Maybe
mukbang stream.
Tam can introduce folks to some Desi food as a fellow British Pakistani.
Yes, let's go, mate.
Let's
do it. Desi food.
Very, very into that.
That's easy to do as well. We could just like Uber Eats or something like that to each other.
Is it going to be good though? Like,
that's the thing.
In San Francisco, there are some places. But I don't know.
I feel like
here
food
we go.
would be perfect for like when we're all at an event together, like when we're all at PAX or E3 or something, and then maybe
so that
E3 is it'd be kind of tricky to make time for. Maybe
that is part of the plan. Zach, did you want to say something there?
No.
Okay, cool. So that is part of the plan. Like we're starting small here, but let's be completely like cards on the table. The kind of funny approach. Like we're trying to be ambitious with this stuff as much as possible, but we're also tempering it by the fact that we're starting small here. We want to get to the point where, firstly, like that idea is born from wanting to experience the kind of that stuff together, and you get to experience us experiencing something for the first time. But it's also not a shrewd, but it just makes sense from smart business and Twitch, right? Like we all have individual followings. If we can pull that into the Lads on Tour following, that's great. If we can then grow Lads on Tour and take it back, like we're trying to create an ecosystem which is built around a community. We're trying to create a community more than anything, where we all get to have a group of people that can come back and forth between us and build something together. And that's very much inspired by the likes of Community, King, Kind of Funny, Min-Max, those kinds of people that we love to see doing their things. And in similar fashion, we have ambitions to do IRL streams and live shows and that kind of stuff. But obviously that's all contingent on being successful. So stuff like food stuff could happen if we just get together and and do an IRL stream of some sort. But yeah, that's kind of like the concept for it. We're trying to shoot for the moon. You know the quote: "Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still among the stars." Let's fucking go.
Yeah, and I consider each and every one of us a star, so I got that going for us.
Exactly.
I did want to encourage the chat right now as we're talking about these things that we may have missed out. I did see Serious Business point out, that they'd never read or the Expanse books. So if you're in the chat, if you're watching this first episode, first of all, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate everybody showing up.
Episode 0.
Powering through our technical difficulties in episode 0 and figure, as we figure stuff out and kind of expound. This is a little bit how the sausage is made, right? We're kind of laying down the tracks as the train is coming. But if you're in the chat, let us know what is something that jumps to mind when you hear the concept. What's something that you would put on your list of shame? What are the things that you feel like you've specifically missed out? I know Jake called me out earlier for not playing any Halo games until very recently, and now I'm like up to my neck in it. But if you're in the chat and you have something that you've thought about this before and you thought like, oh, this is just something that I've always missed out on, let us know what it is. So
and that is something that we also kind of have thought about building in. We're just trying to figure out the mechanics of it. We want to have that list of 10, for example, of our pile of shame. But we want to include maybe 1 or 2 slots that are community voted.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of like look at the stuff that keeps coming up and then put together a list which you can vote on, and we'll have like, this is what the community thinks that we should all experience together. And we want to have that representation like others do. Like community is going to be a big part of us. Like I said, we want to build a community and we want to have a nice group of people where they can feel good and safe and excited about experiencing new things. Like we want you to be excited on a week-to-week basis, to be excited about experiencing something. It could be a movie, book, whatever it may be, and then we want you to be excited about coming back and seeing us experience it, and then talk about it together. So that community building aspect is something that we want to have at the forefront of it. And the ways, if you have ideas for how to kind of cultivate that, Bokeh in chat has already said this is very exciting. Will there be a Discord aspect to the community building side as well? Yeah, there will be. Like we said, we are still doing baby steps, but we want to make a Discord. We're going to be making a Discord, hopefully. We still need to figure out Discords, figure out as a team, Discords can be really interesting. And they also require a deal of moderation and that kind of stuff. So yes, there will be a Discord.
Except for the GameSpot After Dark, the GameSpot Discord has never required any moderation. And I think that is one of the most special things that I've ever seen on the internet.
Yeah, it is incredible. We do have moderators. But it doesn't, from what I can tell, they're not banning racists or anything. It's just a nice group of people. So we're encouraged to do that stuff. We can't say specifically when it will appear, but it will appear once we feel good about it.
And I think we're talking about a lot of pie in the sky ideas. I think we're talking about a lot of stuff that's going to happen, hopefully down the road as we get further on with this journey and stuff. But I did want to start with this episode starting something adjacent to the concept that we have here, and that's the stuff that we might have missed this year. And I think that, the majority of folks that are here today know us from our work in the game space. So we kind of wanted to start this episode 0 by talking about the games that we've missed this year that we feel, maybe a little bit guilty or maybe that we should have had an opportunity to check out some of those games. So I did want to start by getting into this next segment here, talking about the games that we've missed. And also, of course, we're each going to talk about the one game that we loved the most this year too. So Jake, I wanted to start with you. What are some of the games that you feel like you've missed during 2021 that have been on the back of your mind for the year?
So I think the biggest one for me that I really want to play, and I think I will probably play over the holiday break, is Shin Megami Tensei 5. I want to switch. I want to see if switching works. Oh, I think we're good. So nice. This is a game. I mean, I love Persona 5. I loved Shin Megami Tensei 3. I know I'm probably going to enjoy SMT 5. I hear it's pretty traditional, which has me more excited. But I just haven't had time, and I don't think a lot of people can blame me because how long is that game supposed to be? Has anyone played it? Have you guys played it?
I mean, no.
I downloaded it, but then I have not played it yet.
Yeah, that's as far as I've gotten.
Yeah,
I will find out how long it is.
Jean-Luc, you're calling us out here. Yeah, so all of our B-rolls, we're just pulling B-roll off of YouTube, and I went through this morning and selected the B-roll that was in the highest fidelity and had the longest run time, so that as we were talking about stuff, so yeah, you'll see stuff from a bunch of different outlets and a bunch of different creators and stuff like that. It's just it's just basic B-roll. But
yeah, it's interesting that on a podcast with 3 GameSpot or former GameSpot employees, you went for it, Adrian. It's interesting. Shin Megami Tensei 5.
You'll see some GameSpot stuff in there. You'll see the GameSpot watermark in there.
I think one thing that I was thinking about as I was downloading all this stuff is at the end of the show, we should probably be like, here's where we got these from, links. And you should check them out.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 main story is 46.5 hours, according to How Long to Beat.
Well, that's not as bad as I thought. Actually, How Long to Beat, another fine Ziff Davis property. But
John literally just said, not like I edited a very good SMT 5. So,
Shin Megami Tensei 5 has been really interesting to me because I've always been a Persona guy, but I've never been an SMT person. Mm-hmm. And this game in particular, I was kind of interested in it just because it is another game in that series and it's on a platform that I love. And I don't know, I got kind of turned off by what I heard about it just because of the difficulty. I heard it's just an extremely hardcore JRPG. And also there's a lot of stuff around the community that really bummed me out, especially around the reviews. And I'm curious, Tam, I feel like you're also a Persona guy. Lucy, obviously you love Persona. Do you really think that you'll invest the time to get into SMT 5 now that the year is wrapping out? Or
I came in through SMT. Those were my first. I played SMT before I played Persona. I think I will, mainly probably out of just sheer nostalgia and dedication to the franchise.
Okay.
I also think that it's now the big thing with the community, and obviously we're not gonna rag on that community. There's a vocal minority that are out here just being insane. Yeah. But there are very, very obvious kind of parallels between SMT's mechanics and Persona's mechanics. But what makes them interesting is SMT being the original. There's like a symbiotic relationship between them, but they also kind of subvert each other mechanically. So, this is more focused, whereas Persona is more focused on social links and that kind of stuff. This is more focused on the core RPG mechanics. So it swings the other way, where like fusions and battle and that kind of stuff is at front and center. And the recruitment stuff, as Zanetsu points out in the chat. So I think I definitely want to go back to it, because it's been a little while since I've played an SMT game, and I'm really fascinated to see how they've kind of turned the Persona stuff upside down, or like shaken it, and see what kind of like concoction they've put together. I can't say whether I'll complete it, but I will definitely give it a good few hours. I think the stuff that really interesting to me is like, it is hardcore. It does make you like save at certain points, and it is brutal. But I'm also kind of up for that. I like that kind of stuff, especially now, where I don't feel the time pressure to play it. Game of the year has passed. The year's coming to an end. So that's kind of like the second win on all games. Like you go back and you look at the things that you pushed aside because you felt like, I don't have time for this. And now you feel like, although we only have just a couple of weeks until the new year, in our brains, we've tricked ourselves to think that we've got infinite time. So like everything is potentially a thing. So I think I'm going to give it a solid a few hours as well. Nice. What do you reckon, Lucy?
Well, it's funny. I mean, God, it's funny that you said that, like, the difficulty is something that appeals to you. Whereas to me, I found myself, maybe at least this year, just because it's been so busy, that I have less tolerance for stuff that's going to be crushingly hard. Like, I am just one of those people who will now just, if I'm stuck on something, or if, it's taking a little bit too much time, I'm just going to whack it down to easy. Like, yeah, sure, maybe I'll miss out on a trophy or an achievement. I know SMT's on Switch, so I guess that doesn't really matter. But, like, I want to play it because I want to see, sort of the seeds from which Persona ultimately sprung. And obviously there's a lot of similarities, and I've heard a lot over the years about like the demon stuff, and the negotiation is obviously something that did get angled into Persona. So I would love to see that, but in a different game. It's like, systems born from one thing into another, like that new Wonder Woman game that Monolith is making. They're using the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor, and so like I'm interested to see how that works. So with SMT,
Did she freeze for you guys?
Yeah, she's frozen.
She's frozen.
Hang on. Lucy. Okay.
Oh, she's frozen in real life as well.
Give it a go?
Yeah.
You're all fine for me.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd love it if, Zach, you looked over and she was like frozen in real life. Like this.
Yeah. You're good now. You're good now.
Yeah, no, the thing is like, you're all completely fine for me. Could you not hear me at all?
No, we lost you.
Yeah, you fell off for like
most of it. It was like a
you're
couple
good.
seconds.
You're good. You're good.
I'm wired in, so
yeah.
I don't know.
It happens. It's okay.
We're both streaming from the same place. But anyway, like I think it also came out at like a weird point in this year where it just kind of completely passed me by. However, like I do want to try it, but I don't think that's going to be my Christmas game, because I think there are some other games that we're going to be talking about that I will dive into. But like John Luke said, like it's on Switch, and maybe this is just because I've been influenced by Andy Cortez. I was on TikTok this morning, and Andy bought a like a stand that clamps onto his headboard, so he can have his Switch above his face and lie on his back. There he is in the Twitch chat. And so he can lie on his back and the screen just floating up ahead of him, and he can just play Switch games in bed without, like having to sit like this and hurting his neck, or having to have it at the TV. And he's not the first person I know who's done that. Will Potter, who used to work at GameSpot, who's now at Ninja Theory, has also done that. Part of me is like, what if?
Could be a good
And Zach is currently living with me at the moment, so how do you feel about that?
I hate it so much. I want to move on. We've talked about a bit about SMT. Tam, I want to move to your first game.
Yeah.
What's the game that has been weighing on your conscience this year?
For me, it's one that I played a little bit of, but I barely scratched the surface, and it's Forza Horizon 5.
Let's go.
The latest one, right?
Let's go.
GameSpot review.
Yeah.
Just had to say.
Look at
Let's
that.
go.
Look at that.
Review by Alessandro Barbosa. There you go. But yeah, Horizon is a game that I know I'll probably love. I've fallen out of the racing game genre in a big way. I used to really like it, but like very specific. I call them like TAM racing games. They need to have a very specific vibe. And the games that most, like the game that hit the TAM racing vibe closest or like dead on was the Need for Speed Underground series, which is basically, you know, Fast and Furious. And since then, I've like struggled to get into racing games. Like I love the Burnout franchise. I played a crap ton of Paradise. But since then, it's kind of been on and off. But I feel like this is the game that is closest to what I really like, or it's the game that, yeah, closest is probably the best thing. I don't think it's dead on like Need for Speed Underground 1, 2, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's the kind of approachability and vibe and atmosphere that I know that I like. I'm not good at racing games. Right. I like loose, like almost like, you know, Mario Kart-y style. Like, and Burnout is the same way, where it's like you're encouraged to just smash into everything and be fine.
It's actually pronounced Mario Party, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
behave yourself.
Actually, pronounced Mario, your weapon.
Yeah,
you got Brits here.
Yeah, but I do want to play this game more and. I've seen nothing but praise for it pretty much everywhere.
No.
I want to support my fellow British devs as well. Yeah. Shout out to you out there. It's a game that I want to play, and I hope my concern is like it feels like people have moved on in a big way because of Halo. I hope that I'm kind of waiting for my moment for people to come back to it. So there's like, you know, more Drivatars and Ghosts, whatever they're called, and people vying for positions on the leaderboard. Because if I'm going to play a racing game, I do need some sort of like community to egg me on and that kind of stuff. So
right.
I will definitely play it. I just don't know the longevity it will have in my life.
I've played such an amount of Forza Horizon 5. And I think the thing that I like, I've not historically been a racing game guy, but when I got my Series X, I downloaded Forza Horizon 4 because I wanted something that really pushed the system and made, showed me the graphical fidelity. So I really got into Forza through that game, and I've played just such an obscene amount of Forza Horizon 5. And there's something, and I know it's kind of cliche to say something like this about, this game, but like there's something like deeply meditative about Forza Horizon 5. You can just kind of shut your brain off and just drive. And that feels really, really good. It also probably helps that typically when I play Forza Horizon 5, I'm like top 10 stoned. But I should also say that the thing about it for me is that it's such a wonderful, like I don't hardly even think of it as an open or as a racing game as much as I think of it as like an open world game. Like this game is essentially like an open world RPG, except you're playing as a car, right? Like you're getting all this experience points, you're investing these points in these cars and these different, upgrades and shit like that. And it's such a great like testament to what Playground is going to be able to do with Fable. Because like,
I can't wait to play Fable as a car.
If this is, but if this is what they can do with a racing game, like I can't imagine what they're going to do with Fable. It's going to be so good. Like I love this game, and I encourage you to check it out further.
So more than anything, I want to play Fable, jump on a horse, and it's got those like suggested lines for like turning. You're going too fast on this horse, you need to slow down.
So I have a suggestion for you, Tamoor. I wouldn't play Forza or even think of Forza as a game on your backlog, but rather just do a race a day, maybe, because that's how I play it. I just jump in, do like a race, and that's it. It's a game that I can play for hours, but it's also a game that I don't feel like it's forcing me to play for hours. Like I don't feel like I need to sit there and just keep playing for hours. But I just like play a couple races a day, and like that is perfect. I mean,
that is a great shout.
Maybe just start your stream with a race or something.
Yeah. Also, in the chat, F-Tong says anime horse decals.
And you can get a bunch of wild decals too, which is a lot of fun.
I want Fable to have decals for horses, please.
I would say that I played a bunch of Forza. It's like the thing that I really love about it is the fake rivalries that it encourages between me and my friends. So even if you're not playing, I've seen you crop up on my like races and stuff.
Let's go.
Like,
Yeah, I've seen you guys way behind me in races.
oh,
Wow. Okay.
I see
Okay.
Lucy a lot, but I only see her in my rear view mirror. You know what I'm saying?
I'm passable at that game, but it's it's like really fun and a way of encouraging just sort of rivalries because and like I think other games that did this really well were Sleeping Dogs is something that I always remember did this really well. It's like you'd have those little challenges and you'd be like, Tam did this 1 second faster than you, so it kind of encourages you because it's like
I usually do, yeah.
Do it. But one thing I'll say is about like I can't drive in real life, so I'm also like not good at racing games a lot of the time. It depends, but having been able to tap Y and rewind and it just be just so quick, seamless, and it makes you kind of do that little bit of course correction and get back on. It's like it's such a well-made game, and like soundtrack bangs. The opening to Forza Horizon 5
So good, so good.
Hype I think I've ever been for an opening of a game. I was like, I just like it's over the top, it's ridiculous, but it knows it is. And also just, you can put as much into that game as you want to get out of it. There's so much to do, but it doesn't feel overwhelming, which I think the way that it kind of just, gives you little bits to do at a time, especially at the beginning and kind of builds you up a little bit, it's really great. I think you'd definitely love it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those games that has way too much content and a lot of, not in a bad way though, I guess, because a lot of times like some games you see come around with way too much and like I'm never going to get through all this because you still kind of feel pressured to do all that stuff. But in Forza it's like there's so much stuff here that I feel no pressure to do everything. I'm just going to do what I want because
I only care about races. All the other stuff like the battle royale stuff or whatever, like I don't care about any of that. I just want to go drive real fast,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we move on, just a quick reminder to folks, if they're in the chat and they haven't already, follow the channel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just hit the follow button.
Yeah.
Hit the alert bell as well, because that's what everyone else says, so we should probably say it as well.
Yeah.
Maybe
Let's go.
For the next episode, I can set it up so there's notifications when people follow. And stuff.
We can get some alerts going and stuff like that.
Considering I had, we'll see if it happens.
Yeah.
I'll try my best.
No. Maria says hit the shame bell, which is kind of like my new favorite way.
Yeah, hit the shame bell.
Hit the shame bell.
Shame. Yeah.
Lucy, you and I have the next game is on both of our lists, so why don't you go ahead and talk about the next jam that you've missed this year?
We're going through all of them? All right.
One by one, yeah.
Psychonauts 2 is my big one. Like, I never played the original Psychonauts, but I know how big of a deal it is to a lot of people that it even got a sequel in the first place, especially one that came out however many years after the original game. But like seeing the review come through, and at least at work, Kurt was doing it, and he was just so overjoyed. Like people have such a really strong place in their hearts for things that Double Fine make, and the way that this game, and I'm kind of judging from the reactions and stuff, it's like the way that people reacted to the way that the game handled things like mental health and stuff. I feel like it's just a game for me, but also it's like it has things that's like collectibles and it's very funny and it has a zany sense of humor that Double Fine is known for. That it's been like I started playing it and then I had to move, so I'm only maybe like an hour in. It's very, very charming. And so it's the game that I absolutely just desperately, that's like number one on my holiday games list.
Yeah.
I started streaming this yesterday morning, actually. I just started playing this game. I'm about 2 hours in, and I started playing it because I felt like it got really snubbed at the Game Awards. It was nominated for all these awards, and it didn't win a single one. And so I wanted to show a little support. I played the original Psychonauts a couple of years after it came out, and I liked it, but I didn't love it like as much as everybody else. But this game is so instantly and effortlessly charming, and it feels so reminiscent of a game of that era, but has all these quality of life updates that make it feel so kind of new and vibrant, and also like it's so unbelievably psychedelic. I'm really, really enjoyed my time with it. That's gonna be my next stream probably through the Christmas break, just to get through this game because I really, really liked what I played. Jake, this is actually your game of the year. You want to talk a little bit about why you loved Psychonauts so much?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to spoil our GOTYs quite yet, but since you did, I'm
Since
more
I
than
did
happy.
it for you.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about Psychonauts because this is my game of the year. I was one of those people who bought Psychonauts 1 when it came out. I don't know why. I think I was just at GameStop and I looked at the back of the box and it was like 5 out of 5 from some, I don't know, some magazine from years ago. And I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
And I played it and I fell in love with it. And I've been one of those people who've been like, where is my sequel? And I've been waiting for it for a very long time. So playing that game was, not to be hyperbolic, but it felt like a religious experience because I had been waiting so long. And
didn't you back it on like,
I backed it too. I backed it day
Fig?
one. I think I was like within one of the first 1,000 people to back it or something, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think they had like 30,000 people who backed that game or something ridiculous.
Yeah, random tangent story, just some lore from our past. When I was in the UK, Danny O'Dwyer from NoClip, check out NoClip, real cool stuff going on over there, was working at GameSpot. And me and him were doing this thing on the side called Citizen Game, and he was like, "Oh shit, Tim Schafer's coming into the what do you call it, studio or next whatever," and I was like, "Oh man, I really want my copy of Psychonauts signed." So like, I went home early in the morning. I got up, went to Danny's house, and gave him a copy of Psychonauts, and I was like, "Please get this signed for me." And he was like, "Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
incredible. It's so good."
Yeah. Tam, have you had a chance to play much of Psychonauts 2?
I downloaded it. I am ready. I think I'm in the same place with where you and Lucy are. Like, I'm gonna treat it as my big holiday game. Get through that. I would be playing it right now, but Halo's out, and I want to kind of run through that. But yeah, that's at the top of my list to go to next. I'm excited for it. I love Psychonauts, obviously, and it's also a game that like I share the love for with my younger brother. He loves Psychonauts loads. It's one of the games that we like played kind of together and bonded over. I recommended it to him, and he loves it. He loves the Milkman conspiracy. Every now and then we like just shout, "I am the Milkman. My milk is delicious" at each other, and no one else, unless they played Psychonauts, understands it. But you know, here's like two tall bearded men shouting, "My milk is delicious" at each other in public, and it's just, I love it.
I think with Psychonauts 2, I think the biggest thing for me, at least that I want to get across, is the game has so much heart. Like compared to so many, I mean, there's a lot of great games that came out this year, but looking through a lot of the nominations that we saw at the Game Awards, like just, it's hard to compare them, right? But Psychonauts just, you can tell it was made by people, and like all the stories are so well written, and it touches on some really deep stuff, but it never gets too deep, I would say. Like it still keeps that sense of humor that was so important to the first game, and it's still present in this. So I highly recommend it. I think it is kind of like what you were saying, Zach. It does kind of feel like an older game in many ways, and that's because it is very similar to the original Psychonauts, and I can see why that would be a turnoff for some people. That said, though, I can't recommend that game more highly, but I think it might be worth playing 1 first if you have not played 1.
So there is like a nice little, 3-4 minute, here's what happened in Psychonauts.
Right. Yeah.
One thing I'm concerned about, and like I am glad you brought up the Jeffs, the Keeleys, the Game Awards, because Psychonauts was nominated for so many and didn't win anything, which, I mean, an award is not indicative of, full quality or whatever, but I did find that like really nice to see that it was up so much, and that kind of reinvigorated my wanting to play it. But in terms of like replaying Psychonauts 1, I've seen like mixed things about that, because obviously it is a much older game, and when I watched the little thingy at the beginning, I was like, I feel like I've got a good grasp of this, but I know I'm not going to get the full experience of the Milkman conspiracy or whatever. So I'm kind of like in two minds about, because I've seen in the chat folks saying that like the old one, and even Psychonauts 2 in a way feels dated, but I think that's kind of part of its charm. Maria brings up that there's also like the VR game. I completely forgot.
Yeah, Rhombus of Ruin.
That one, I mean, I think a lot of people had to skip it just because VR is a pain.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's pretty short, but I would recommend playing 1 if you can. I will say,
it's backwards compatible. Yeah.
It is backwards compatible. It's on Game Pass.
It's on Game Pass.
I will say the last level has aged the
Very
poorest
Yeah.
of
Oh, I
all
bet.
of it.
I bet it has.
It
Yeah.
is so, because I played it right before 2 came out, and it is so frustrating. A lot of the the jumps you do don't always connect, and you have to be so precise with your platforming, and the platforming itself isn't super precise. So it's rough. So I think, at least give it a shot. But the Milkman conspiracy in particular in Psychonauts 1 is something that I think should be seen. Maybe at least watch a playthrough of that
the
section,
Milkman
'cause it's so
conspiracy.
good.
I feel like it should be in like a games history course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that level is so legendary. Jake, I wanted to get to your second choice here. Kind of move along with the second thing that you feel like you missed out on this year.
Yeah, it's Overboard. It's a game that I actually don't know a whole lot about, but I heard a lot of people speaking very highly of it. From what I understand, it's basically a mystery game, except you're the murderer and you're just trying to get away with it. Kind of like Hitman, I think, is kind of like what I've heard descriptions of. I've got some gameplay I'm going to cut to.
Yeah, Lucy, this is also on your list too.
I mean, Jake, I'm so glad you said you don't know much about it, and I think that's kind of part of the charm of this one, because I've just heard so much buzz about it. Like, I'm looking at the Steam page right now, and, very, very positive reviews and stuff, and it's like a cruise ship. It's meant to be, just very funny. Like, people were just kind of raving about it when it came out over the summer. It also came out, like, mid E3, wild stuff going on there, and so...
Chaos, yeah.
Just absolute chaos, and so I really, really want to play it, and it's also just like on pretty much it's on
Switch as well.
It's on Switch, it's on PC. Oh, it keeps giving me like if you search for Overboard game, it's like mashed up with a game from 1997, so it's kind of all over the place. But it looks. I also like the art style quite a bit, and I just really wanted to play it because it's like it also doesn't seem like it's a massive time commitment too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the folks who made 80 Days and Heaven's Vault. It's on iPhone as well. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, Wallaby Jones in the chat says it's on. You can get it on your phone for $5, and each playthrough is only 45 minutes long.
Oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah. This is a game that I hadn't heard of until you guys put it on your list today. It looks cool. I love the idea of like playing. There's a lot of games where you're trying to solve a murder, but I love the kind of game where you're trying to get away with murder. Like, that's really interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Tam, what's your second game?
So my second game is Chicory, which I don't know. I don't know the best way to describe this, but like I have not a love-hate relationship. I struggle with cutesy indie games these days. I don't know. There's something about them that I don't know. It feels like we're at a stage now where. Do you remember when an indie game came out that looked like something like Chicory? It was like a breath of fresh air, and it felt like it was. It stood apart from literally everything else that existed.
Yeah,
and it's just the way that games have and like propagation of games and where they're sold and marketing and that kind of stuff. Every second game I see looks like Chicory. Every second game, like these days, like a Journey could come out and it would look like another 10 games that already exist. So I find myself really struggling with latching onto these kind of games, it's a me problem, not the game problem. But there's a few that really have like pushed their way to the surface. I think Chicory is one of them. There's like Wildermyth is another one, a couple of other games that I won't mention because I know they're on some lists that we're going to talk about, or they're on a few lists that we have here. But Chicory is one that I've heard stuff constantly about, and it's one that I sadly haven't gone back to check out, despite hearing loads of good things to it. But everything that I've heard makes me feel like I will enjoy this. So I definitely want to go back to it, and I'm all about it especially when it's like short and sweet. And that very much seems like what this game is, and it has an interesting concept too. So I feel like I will enjoy it. I just need to just buckle up and get involved with it as soon as possible.
This game is like, it's been recommended to me by a lot of people that know my taste in games. Like, a lot of people have said like, yo, you specifically I think would really like this. It's kind of like a Link to the Past, with several variations, but this is something that I've had on my list for a while, but I kind of agree with you, Tam. Like, there's something about this, like, I don't want to say twee aesthetic because that sounds like derogatory, but there's something about like the overall look of the game that has kept me. Is this guy going to write butt?
It certainly
Please,
is.
Ryan,
We got to vet
please
these videos before we.
That's
pull
right.
Them. It's on me.
There's something about the aesthetic of the game that like hasn't really done it for me. You know, like it hasn't. I don't know. It's kept me from like really taking the leap and jumping in on it. But I mean, the game has garnered like basically universal praise. Like, and I know folks like that absolutely love it and have put it on their top 5, top 10 lists this year.
Yeah.
So.
I played a good amount of it, and I enjoyed what I played. My issue was that I just have no sense of taste, I guess, because I couldn't paint anything to look as good as I see in trailers and other people's. I'm like, man, my world looks stupid. I don't want to like. I don't know. It's super beautiful though. Once you've like really gotten your hands on the how the painting works and stuff.
Right.
There's a lot of neat ideas, but I think A Link to the Past mixed with like a coloring book is probably the best way to describe this game.
But also, in a weird way, it's a little bit of Okami as well.
Yeah.
Like taking that brush and directly drawing onto the world. To your point about like it not looking as distinctive, I don't think it helped that it came out at like pretty much the exact same time or around the same time as Toem.
Yes.
Because the art style of those two are very, very similar. The thing that I started playing Chicory on, I was playing on PC, but I was playing with controller. And I played like an hour or so, and I was getting into it, but I think I'm going to restart and play mouse and keyboard, because the controller just felt, I don't know, it's like to your point, Jake, about I want it to look good. With a controller, it's a little
harder.
Unless it was like I was supposed to say on the Wii, forgetting that the Switch exists. Play it on the Switch, and you get a little bit more fidelity, so to speak.
I think
this
is a game that I'd want to play on an iPad. Like I've got an iPad that I don't use for games, but I think I would absolutely like this game would be a blast on an iPad just because you have that precision. Because I was also playing on controller. I think I was playing PS5, and it was just like I'm really bad at making any of this look good, and it's kind of bumming me out.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I think I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, it's been like honestly at this point, like I probably just won't get to this game. There's a lot of stuff that I've been recommended or that I've heard about and like that looks really cool. But like when I stop and think about it, like, well, I really sit down and play Chicory, like probably not. I know Jean-Luc in this chat here says that the narrative really made him love it, and that's very cool. I'm glad to hear that it has a strong story too. Anybody else have any thoughts on Chicory before we move on to the next jam?
No.
Nah. So the next game, this is another double up from me and Lucy. We both put this on our lists, and that's Wildermyth. This game, to me, it's funny because like I have a funny feeling about this game. Like it's not a game that I would typically. This kind of falls into the same class as in Inscription for me, where it's not a game that I would typically be super interested in, just in terms of the gameplay of it. But everything around that that I've heard about it has been very, very interesting. Like it's essentially like a Dungeons and Dragons game, right? Where the dungeon master is just letting the story play out, and you play through like generations of I think it's one family. But it was like super, super highly praised, and people that have played it absolutely love it and say that the story is killer, and like it just does some really, really interesting stuff. And it's something that I've had on my Steam wish list for, I don't know, since it came out, since I started hearing about it on different podcasts. And I love the aesthetic. I think that it just looks like a super cool game, and I wish that I had made the time for it earlier this year so I could put it in the conversation around Game of the Year, but I just completely missed out on it.
We should do a co-op stream or whatever when we do a campaign. And
can you do co-op on this one?
So you should be able to. I was trying to figure out with some friends how to do co-op, and we had some issues. I think I just didn't get far enough. But what I played was super cool. It's basically, it's like a randomly generated story. Not so much randomly generated, like the story adapts to what you do.
Yeah,
procedurally. That's a better word.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It does some really cool things, and some of the outcomes that happen are incredibly unpredictable, but all still make sense. I played a good amount. I played like I think half of one of the tutorial campaigns, so I only really got my feet wet. But it's a game that I definitely want to return to because I was having a great time. But I was really trying to figure out co-op, which is something that I would like to do because I think with 4 of us, it'd be cool.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that it had a co-op situation, and like obviously, a Dungeons and Dragons is a game that you play with your friends. I think it could be really cool to play. That's so clearly based around or inspired by Dungeons and Dragons with a group of people. I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah, because that's the game that like I've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, but just like timing, getting a gang together is like really difficult, especially well, it sounds weird to say that because we've been locked inside for 2 years, but it's just not been, it's just never panned out. And so I really wanted to, and listening to things like the Adventure Zone as too, it just like, it sounds like the most fun you can have. And so not being able to do one in person, like I would love to try a game, because also Dungeons and Dragons is, there's a lot to pick from. You need to have an experienced dungeon master. You need to be able to, have the time commitment, have someone who knows what they're doing. And so for a game to be able to just kind of take the edge off and also have a tutorial and also you are able to play it co-op, I think that just sounds like perfectly like my jam. I like it, despite not playing this, because I know like Mike Mahadi, former GameSpot, current Polygon.
Never heard of him.
Who?
Polygon.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Like yikes Mahadi. No,
Yeah.
Listen.
Mike Mahardly working. That's what I used to call him.
Working.
Oh no.
The man who can't eat a banana properly. He was singing this game's praises earlier in the year, and a buddy of mine back in the UK, he was talking about like a game that he wanted to just pick up something, and I recommended this to him because I was like, if Mike likes it, I think you'll like it. And he was just sending me screenshots of all the random shit that his characters were getting up to for like the next month or so. So that in my head is a badge of quality.
And in the spirit of
Tim Andrew in the chat just said it raised the bar for procedural storytelling, which I agree with. I think that's a good way to just sum up that game.
That's awesome. In the spirit of promoting others that we like, you can check out the Fire Escape podcast, which is Dan Reichert, Mike Mahadi, and Mary Kish. And there's one episode where they talk about that extensively. And Waypoint is also doing like an ongoing co-op stream. So if you want to check out more of them, you should definitely seek those out if you want more of an idea of what that game is like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So up next, we should probably... Jake, I'm sorry that I spoiled your game of the year early on, but
that's okay.
You have one more game that you missed that you wanted to talk about. You want to throw that out there?
Yeah, it's a game that I didn't think I'd have any interest in whatsoever, just because those games aren't really my thing. But after watching some gameplay of Chivalry 2, I quickly figured out that this is a game that looks like it would be a ton of fun. I'm a little afraid to jump into it now because I feel like people are probably very good at it now. And I imagine it's a game that requires a good amount of know-how skill. But just the absurdity I've seen, like people chopping off other players' heads and then throwing the head at other players. And I think you can do you can like, I don't know, throw chickens at players too. It seems absurd, incredibly gory, and just a lot of fun. So it's something I want to check out, but when that'll happen, I don't know.
Asano in the chat points out it's got a dedicated yell button, which is incredible scenes here.
Like, I remember some of the accents. I remember Greg being like, "Oh, this is how the British sounds." Like, "Oh,
isn't he in this game?"
Oh, I feel like he is.
I think he's in this game.
Is that what I'm conflating it with? Yeah, he did a British accent for this.
Yeah, I think he's got a British accent in this game.
Accent.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so if Greg's in it, don't play this game.
Yeah, that's right.
It just seems like an incredibly gory comedy game. I don't know.
It's funny because like in my mind, Chivalry, this one and the first one were completely different games. Like I thought that they were like, for some reason I was thinking that they were like very stuffy, like strategy games, like really realistic, like, turn-based strategy games or something. And then at the Game Awards this year, this was nominated, I think, for Best Action Game. And during the highlight reel, they showed, a lot of similar gameplay to as we're seeing here. And it was like, what the hell? That's what this game is? Like, this looks fucking awesome. Like, I thought this was a completely different game. And so looking at it now, it's like, yeah, this looks sick. Like, I would totally play this. It looks insane.
This looks so stupid. I love it.
Yeah, it looks so dumb. I love it.
For the longest time, this was Johnny Chiodini's just like go-to game.
Yeah.
So Johnny Oz used to work for GameSpot. Now they have their own Patreon and stuff. But like I always remember Johnny just making Chivalry videos and just getting into it because it is just so wacky. It's like I'm watching the gameplay now. It's just sort of just look at how easily that guy's head came off.
The little kick that he did there, that was great.
My favorite animation that I've seen a couple times that we've seen in the gameplay is when they turn the sword around and just hit him with the end of the sword. I'm like, I don't know the point of that, but it seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks cool. Tam, you're up next with your last game that you've missed out on this year.
Yeah, so Scarlet Nexus is one that I wanted to go back to. I started it, but very quickly stopped. Love JRPGs, and this is kind of in the same vein as SMT5, where there's certain JRPGs that I always feel like I want to play, just so I know that I still have a good grasp of the genre. This is
Mitchell's review where he talks about a few other games that has comparison.
Okay. But yeah, it's one of those ones where like I want to go certain JRPGs that I want to play just because I feel like they're brought up as this is helping the genre to a degree or like is doing something interesting. Mm-hmm. And Scarlet Nexus is one that was called out. Honestly, I wrote it off. It's a Bamco game, Bandai Namco, and Bandai Namco are very hit and miss with their games lately. They always seem to create games that I should like, but for some reason or another, just never execute it on it in a way that that I actually do like. They had that one Souls-like game that came out, the anime Souls-like game Vein. That just Code Vein. That was just like
I thought that this was Code Vein. Like when you
that's the problem.
When you put Scarlet Nexus on the list, I was like, oh, that's that anime Souls-like. Yeah. And so I thought when you said that this was an RPG, I was like, what the hell game is he talking about? Yeah. Like
so this is they make a lot of games which look the same as well, which is a problem. So I definitely want to go back to this. The other game that I wanted to check out because I heard it was doing real good things in the genre was Tales of Arise, which is the game I'm currently streaming on Twitch like 3 times a week.
I know we're off.
Tales of Arise is coming together. I think it's very strong from the outset. It's like it's got a lot of the tropes that anime games have, and it's got a lot of tropes that Scarlet Nexus also had from Tales the very beginning. Yeah, it's got Tales game style tropes, but I think what's really interesting about this is like this feels kind of like Tales of Arise feels like a classical JRPG in the vein as something like, Final Fantasy, because Tales is a storied franchise. This feels like the JRPG through the lens of, to a degree, Fire Emblem, which is kind of like the more recent Three Houses Fire Emblem, and even Persona, where it's more about like dynamics between certain characters. You got your crew, as you can see on screen, and there's a lot of like dynamism and like kind of relationship stuff that impacts combat, and it's also got like the physics-based stuff where it's action focused, and that's something that I think that's what it's bringing to it, and that's why I want to check it out. But Tales of Arise itself I'm really enjoying Tales, and like I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I played a few of the other ones, but it's kind of by playing Tales of Arise and really enjoying it, it made me want to go back to Scarlet Nexus as well, just because I've heard so much good things about it. So JRPG is having a solid season right now, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great stuff that's come out this year on the JRPG front, and it's actually been a very I would say important year for JRPGs. Mm-hmm. I haven't played this Scarlet Nexus. I'm at a point in my life where I would love to play more JRPGs, but I don't know that that's going to happen for me. So,
is it on Switch? I was just hearing about this great stand that you can use. Oh
my god! I want you guys to know that I texted Lucy while the stream was happening, and I said, if you get a bed clamp for your Switch, we're through. So
Lucy, I think you should do it, and also I want you to keep in mind that you have a tablet and you can use xCloud to play anything on Xbox. Yeah. So you could play Tales of Arise or even Scarlet Nexus very easily.
You don't understand how hard it is to get Lucy out of bed on a day-to-day basis.
I mean,
Don't let her put a console. Don't let her put a console above her face where she doesn't have to.
Okay,
move
so listen.
Live your best life, Lucy. Do it.
Here's insight. I'm very much like Lucy, and I don't have a in this respect. I don't have a clamp, but I do have this.
What? Oh, he's gonna go. Okay. Where's he going?
Oh,
You see this bad boy? It's a little stand which I put my iPad or my gaming device into, and I put it next to my bedside or in front. I literally sometimes I will sit in front of my TV playing a game, put my iPad on this, and then watch a stream. Usually Hassan Piker streams, and in front of me, and so I'm watching a stream and playing a game. This is what happens when they took away Xbox Snap. Disgusting behavior.
yeah. So
I encourage it, Lucy. Do it.
thank you. But also, it's because I don't want to have a TV in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Because in my head, first of all, there's nowhere for it to go. But in my head, I'm like,
I don't want to have a
bedroom
TVs.
is-
I don't want to have a TV, but I'll have a tablet and a fucking Switch and all this.
Yeah,
Just hovering above my face.
I've got a memory foam mattress. I think it'd be good for my back.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I've only got one more pick before we get into our Game of the Year picks, and that's a little game called Unsighted, which I only recently heard about and started looking into it. This is The Escapist. This is their 3-minute review of Unsighted.
We've only got 3
Before we
minutes
start
to talk
talking about Unsighted, another plug. I mentioned Into the Ether, a podcast, a low-key video game podcast. That one of their recent episodes was all about this game, and it is probably one of the best discussions about this game, and it will sell you on wanting to play this. So I highly recommend you check them out.
I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that podcast because I know this is on Game Pass right now also. And this is a Metroidvania set in a world where essentially where like androids are losing their sentience. And so the whole conceit of the game is that there's all these NPCs around the world that they have a countdown timer. And when the timer hits 0, they become essentially like zombies. They're androids that will only live to attack. And so the whole game is this Metroidvania where you're trying to unravel this mystery and find out why this is happening and how to stop it. But apparently the systems work so well together, and it's made by Trans-Brazilian dev team. That's really, really cool. But it's like Kotaku called it their Metroidvania of the year. I saw it was on Polygon's best of list, really high. I think it was like number 3 or 4. And they said that it was the best Metroidvania that came out this year, and in a year when a new Metroid game came out. I think that's really impressive. I had a realization this year playing through several Metroid games in anticipation of the release of Dread that the Metroidvania is like my favorite genre of games. And so anything that has that in the description and has received damn near universal praise, but only like hasn't really gotten a ton of like attention, I really, really want to play this. And so I'm putting this on my list. Yeah, it is currently on Game Pass, but I'm putting this on my list of holiday games as well. Somebody should go back through this first episode and figure out how many times we said that we each of us claimed that a game was going to be their holiday game, because I think we're all rocking about 4 or 5 games through the next 3 weeks.
Well, you definitely sold me on this.
This game,
even though you hadn't played it.
Yeah, this game looks sick, and I'm really, really excited to get into it, and kind of embarrassed that I didn't know, having claimed that the Metroidvania genre was like my genre. I think it's a little bit surprising that this wasn't on my radar until people started talking about it. But yeah, it looks awesome. So.
Yeah, Epic Open World just said that like it also has great accessibility options, which is
that's great.
Cool. So it just seems like everything this team has done in this game, they've just done it and executed it very,
nice.
very well.
Yeah, right on. Lucy, your last game before we chat Game of the Year here.
Mine is Before Your Eyes, which is a game that was recommended to me earlier this year when it first came out, and it's awful. It's awful for me because I never got around to playing it. But we've been talking about this one in the office, like a lot of impassioned pleas to talk, like, please play this game. It's basically just it has a really cool conceit that it kind of plugs into your webcam, and whenever you blink in the game. It's like basically what happens if your life is flashing before your eyes, and by blinking you change the scene and you go through all this stuff. And I don't want to know more than that. I think that's a really cool way of exploring key life moments and you know, it's a really interesting way of telling a story because you're only telling it in such bite-sized pieces. You are reliant on your player blinking. So I think it's really clever. Just the amount, like even just watching the footage here, you can just see how much quote unquote environmental storytelling. Like there are so many things that you can just pick at and look, and you can get a sense of some of the story from in each scene as it comes up and as it flashes and loads in. And I think it's really cool. And I have it. It's in my Steam library. I really want to play it, but Tam, I know you've played it and you were singing its praises.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, it's like an hour and a bit long, but like the easy pitch for it is: imagine one of the most important moments from your life. Like it could be something as like the moment you knew that you were falling in love, and or like the moment you truly felt loved by someone, for example. Imagine in that if you were able to relive that for a moment, but only as long as you could keep yourself from blinking. Like the effort that you put in to not blink because you want to stay in that moment is like, that's what the game asks of you. And on the other side, imagine if you had to remember something that was, I don't know, traumatic or made you sad. Like the moment it comes up, you just want to blink it away. But do you really want to do that, or do you want to sit in it for a moment? And it's that kind of, it's one of that mechanic and the conceit of it feels like one of the truly new things to happen in gaming in a real long time, which is weird to say because it's kind of built on a gimmick. Or what looks like a gimmick,
Mm-hmm.
But this game elevates that by taking that idea and actually narratively putting it into something that is kind of like way more than just a gimmick. It's something that's meaningful and it's something that will stay with you for a long time. It's a short game. It's like, I think it's an important game to play. It's real cool.
I've heard a lot about this game, and I've honestly avoided playing it just because I think the thing about this game is like people are posting photos of themselves after the end of playing the game and like how hard they've been crying playing it. And like, I just games that make you sad, I just don't know, man. It
doesn't exclusively make you sad. It is a life lived in a video game. Like there are highs, there are lows, there's trauma, there's just moments of elation, and that's kind of the point of it. And you do come away feeling like a lot of people do come away thinking profoundly about your own life. And I feel like it's like what I was saying previously, where indie games kind of blend together and very few of them stand out as uniquely their own. This is a game that is undoubtedly unlike anything else, and it's one that it's an indie game that I wanted to play, and it's worth that.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Lucy, I'll probably play it on your computer since it's already installed over there.
Fine.
Yeah, that worked out real well for me. That's it for the games that we've missed this year. But we are going to talk a little bit. Jake, you already talked about Psychonauts 2 as your game of the year. Lucy and Tam, you all have the same game of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and start just going to talk a little bit about my favorite game of the year. And that game is, of course, Metroid Dread. Anybody that's been following my streams knows that Metroid has been sort of my thing forever. I adore this series, and especially the Prime games, I think were previously, my favorite entries into the Metroid series. But I approached this game with some trepidation because I didn't really like Samus Returns that much on the 3DS when it came out. I wasn't super confident in Mercury Steam ability to deliver like a really great Metroid game, but this game is absolutely incredible. I think in a year where so many great games came out, and I'm really hard pressed to play a game more than once over the course of my lifetime, let alone in a year. I played this game 4 times back to back to back. I did a speed run. I did a completionist run. I played it in hard mode. I absolutely destroyed this game and loved every second of it every single time. And I think it's a really, really great example of how you take a sort of retro genre or like an older style of game and bring it into the modern age in such a beautiful way. To me, and I know it's fucking stupid to say this game really makes you feel like Samus, right? But to me, Samus moves through these environments and controls and plays in this game the the way that I had always imagined her doing in Metroid, Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, games like that. Like that was always to me, like in my mind's eye, how Samus was. And in this game, that's fully realized. And I just like, I absolutely adore this game. And I think the thing that it did the best was like, Metroid has never really been known for having these like super involved or you know, complicated narratives. And I think that that's still the same here. But it does some things narratively that are so fucking cool and like so impactful. I was just completely floored by this game, and it was a pleasant surprise for me. You know, I wasn't anticipating it to be as great as it is, and I think it's like rarely do I ever talk about, you know, a game being perfect, but I think it's nearly a perfect game. I you know, I wish I was playing it right now, to be completely honest.
I think more so than any other game this year, like there were so many moments that just gave me chills. Like
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
music, whenever I'd pick up an item, like some of the boss fights, some of just even just the moment to moment gameplay, and like of course the Emmys too. Like those gave me a different kind of chills. I was terrified, but like there's just so many memorable moments in this very short game that will, I mean not very short, but there's so many moments that just are gonna stick with me for so long. And I only played once, but I have been like, I've been wanting to replay it. I actually just managed to finally get the collector's edition of it, which
Nice.
took forever. And yeah, I think that'll be a good opportunity to replay it.
Yeah, incredible game.
That game is real good. Like it's a game. The thing I loved about it, like I really enjoyed it, and it's not my favorite Metroid. It's not even it's not my favorite game of the year. It's definitely in the top 10. But what I will always love it for is it reminded me and reinforced how much I love Metroid. Which is really, really cool. And not just Metroid as a game, but like Samus as a character. And I think that's the thing that it does best about for in this game. It is like it takes into account where Samus is in her career. And it takes into the account the fact that you, as a bounty hunter, it takes into account the fact that you've been through these motions a bunch of times. Like, and the moment where you meet Kraid yet again, and she's just so over it. And she's
Right.
like, she's barely looking at Kraid. And she's like, pre-charged her charge shot when she's like walking into the room and sees Kraid there. You're like, she's such a fucking badass. And she knows it. She's unstoppable. And then when they use her theme, when that kicks in, I remember just like getting chills, and it's like one of those moments where I like that when that music came in towards the end of the game, I like instantly had every moment that every moment that made me love Metroid like flash in front of my eyes, and I was like, fuck, I love Metroid so much. So it's a game that for me is like successful and unsuccessful in a few things, but ultimately when it was over, I was like, this is a great game. And I really love Metroid. I think that is special because of that.
You touched on
absolutely.
it, but Samus is just so fucking cool too. Like that's probably my favorite Nintendo protagonist, I think. Like,
Easily.
They also do so much with her character by having her say and do so little. Like, you know, there's a moment in the game where she gets approached by a friendly, right, like a non-player character that is on her side, but he approaches from behind, and when she turns around, you know, she brings up her gun and she's pointing at him, but then she kind of sees who it is and is like resigned to it, and it's just like this little, it's 2 seconds in the game, but you get her exasperation. You can't even see her face, but you get her exasperation. You understand the way that she's feeling from that. I think that they made such smart choices. And as much as you loved this game, Tam, there was one game that you and Lucy both loved more. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what game that was that ended up at the top of your list this year?
Go for it, Lucy.
I was going to say I've never even played a Metroid game, so what a perfect show.
Put it on the list.
Yeah, add it to the list. I think I only have the IGN review for your guys' pick, so.
What the hell, man?
Wow.
Are you joking? Like the one that Tam wrote and I edited?
That's not true. I picked the GameSpot review.
Yeah, it is the GameSpot. It is the GameSpot review. I just wanted to rock the boat a little.
And I was rustled there. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Tam wrote it. I edited it. You can tell what it is. It's Deathloop. I mean, God, Arcane Studios, how I love thee. Let me count the ways. I like Tam's review is honestly just like, first of all, it's one of my favorite things you've ever written, because I think you did such an eloquent job of like piecing together, taking what is essentially like could be a very complicated thing. Like the whole conceit of Deathloop is like two rival assassins caught in a time loop, and in order to break that time loop, one of them has to kill 8 visionaries. And so in that way, it sounds a little bit like Dishonored, right? You get your targets, and you have to go around and figure out the best way to take them out. The Arcane then were like, well, what if it's in a time loop and you can do things over and over again, and you can, narratively, there is a reason and a way for you to keep approaching these encounters in different ways and experiment and try new things, and like will give you a bunch of fun powers. Oh, and also the 2 main characters, Colt and Juliana, are actually really entertaining, and you want to go through loops because you want to hear more of that conversation. And so it's like this, and also like the Void engine just looks and it feels so good to play, and like the art direction, it's like the 60s. And so basically like Arcane of just, it's an embarrassment of riches, especially as an Arcane fan, because you can just see the inspiration and things that they've taken from their previous games, like all of their previous games really. Like also even, they helped out on Wolfenstein Youngblood, and there's a co-op aspect to this, and the fact that there is a multiplayer aspect to this game that kind of narratively feeds into the main loop. Like everything feels so purposeful, and that's what I really loved about it. Like nothing is in there out of pure chance. Like it is there, it is designed to be there, it feels like it belongs there, and it's I say this a lot. I think Arcane's world building is completely just unrivaled. Obviously a large part of that is art direction, but also stories and the way the characters talk, and just kind of go about their daily lives. And the fact that in Deathloop, the fact that you live the same day over and over again, you see the same areas at different times of day, you see how people's routines change and where they go. And I just think it's like, this is a very rambly long answer, but it's because there's so much in this game to love. And yeah, so Tam, you take it away.
Yeah, I think like to this is a game that I've talked much about. We've both talked much about, and I think we're gonna on GameSpot. We're still doing our Game of the Year stuff, and it's gonna come up in a few places there. So I don't want to take what I've written and said for that stuff and say it here. So I'll come at it from a different angle and pick up on something that Lucy said. Like, there's an incredible economy of design in this game, and like the phrase economy of design can be flipped depending on your cynicism level to say, asset flips, reusing stuff, that kind of thing. But that is effectively what they're doing. They're taking these assets, these routines, and they're making you play through it over and over again. It never at all feels like that. You get some games where you see an animation twice, you see a corridor twice, and it's blatantly obvious what's going on, and it pulls you out of the experience. This is a game where they reuse areas, they reuse moments, they reuse mechanics within this game and within Arcane's overall library of titles. There's things in here that are from Dishonored, that are from Prey, but it never feels like that, and that is an incredibly impressive achievement. Like, they not only make it feel distinct and feel unique, even though a lot of it isn't, especially within the game and within Arcane's library of titles and development efforts, but they make you flip it so that that's part of the point. That's kind of the how you learn to love this game, learn to play this game. And I think that is such an impressive thing. Like, there's so much of this game that is instructional, both to players and to developers. And I think that is one of the coolest things about it. And there's so much to kind of dig into, whether it's a single player stuff, but the multiplayer probably doesn't get talked about as much as it deserves to. Like Juliana having her own kind of skill tree and progression path, the amount of fun that you can have messing with other players and messing with your friends just by being in this world and disguising yourself as other enemies. that Assassin's Creed style thing where you know the game so well that you also know how enemies behave and where they're placed, and you can exploit that. So, place yourself where you know the person you're hunting is likely to overlook a thing because of repetition, and they assume a thing is going to be a thing, but actually you're there to replace that and cause some problems. So cool, and like top to bottom, this is like just an incredible game, and I truly love it.
Yeah, in many ways, Deathloop feels like the perfect Arcane game for me. Yeah. Just because I love all of Arcane games a lot. Like I played Dishonored, Prey multiple times, but the one thing that I'd always do is if it wasn't perfect, I'd restart. And I was one of those people who would just keep restarting, not so much with Prey, but especially Dishonored. I wanted those 100% assassin runs. But this, I feel much more willing to experiment because you're going back to these areas and doing it again, that it doesn't even feel repetitive. It just feels like, okay, now I'm going to try this. And eventually you can like see yourself get better as you just redo these levels. But like, okay, I know this guy's going to be here. I know this guy's going to be here. I'm going to switch to this weapon to take out this guy. That way I won't get spotted here. And just sort of the calculating that your brain does while you're playing it and how it changes over the course of your experience of that game, I think it's like an unrivaled feeling.
Yeah, this is a close second for me this year. This was like Metroid Dread was number 1, but I mean, Deathloop was right there at number 2. And I see a couple of people in the chat, F. Shavin and Wallaby Jones, talking about how they couldn't really get into the game. And it took me a couple hours to get into it as well. Like I was looking forward to this game for so long. And I remember at the very beginning, I was like, I'm not actually sure if I like this. Like, I'm not actually sure if this is the game that I wanted it to be. And then as I got deeper into it and started understanding the actual loop and the characters and things like that, like it started to become a little more clear to me of like, oh, this is actually exactly what I wanted. And I think that Dishonored tells a stronger story, both of the Dishonored games, but I think that in terms of how gameplay is married to narrative and just the overall conceit of the mystery that you're trying to solve and how to get people in the same place and all these different things, like I just don't know a game that has done something so interesting in so long. Like just an amazing game. And no spoilers, but I think one of the big issues that people have with it is the way that it wraps up. But like that didn't bother me at all. Like I actually really liked the ending and thought it was appropriate. And like I can't wait to I'm giving this game some serious distance because I want to try and forget a lot of it and get back to it in a year or so and re-experience some of this stuff because I had an amazing time playing it. There were so many moments where I was playing it and I just would say out loud, like, holy shit, this is so cool. Like it's just a very, very cool game, It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to call out someone in the chat, Epic Open World says, I've not enjoyed previous games from this dev, but Deathloop seems like the one I will like. I totally agree. I think if you're not into like immersive sims, I feel like Deathloop is probably a very good first.
It's way more of an action game,
in that because it is an action game.
The shooting feels great.
The shooting feels really better, but also I feel like because you're able to go back to these areas and try out different things, it does a good job of really explaining or visually teaching you how immersive sims work in a sense. And I was kind of the same way initially. Like it took me a while to get into Dishonored and Prey, but once I got into them, I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. This is just a playground for me to mess around and try a bunch of cool different things. But I feel like Deathloop is the perfect place to start. I think if you like Deathloop, then I would try some of Dishonored in particular.
Go back and
Dishonored's
check out
fantastic.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, gang, that brings us to the end of episode 0 of Lads on Tour. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. It's so nice to see so many people show up and, bear with us a little bit at the beginning, but we found our rhythm. And I had a great time talking about the games that we missed and talking about the things that we want to do here. And so it was really, really awesome to see this kind of come to fruition. We've been talking about doing this for months. And so it's nice to get the ball rolling, and we're going to keep that ball rolling. We'll be back next Sunday, December 19th, to put together our list of games for the first season of Lads on Tour. So if you're here and if you can make it, please come and join us in that discussion as we look to the community to fill in some of those slots like Tam was talking about and bring our own shames to the forefront and let people, we can all decide what the first season looks like as we move forward. Before we go, I did want to plug really quickly if you're here in the chat and you're watching and you haven't followed, please throw us a follow here on Twitch. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Lads on Tour Crew, where we'll post updates and fun shit like that. Like we're figuring that out as well. But please toss us a follow.
We'll get those notifications fixed. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. We'll get those notifications fixed and we'll get the alerts set up and et cetera, et cetera.
Also, one thing I just want to add, if this timing is not great for you, like if you're in another region, we will be putting these on podcast streams. When that'll happen, I don't know. We have the account set up, but I mean, I don't know. You all know how iTunes is, and it could take a couple days. So be patient. Hopefully, by episode 1, we will have the feed set up, and they should upload at a time we haven't decided yet. But
it is absolutely a gender-neutral term of lads.
Yeah,
I use lads all the time.
Yeah. So to break that down, a lot of people think it's for males only, but the British, especially us, me, Lucy, and folks we know, we use lads as a gender neutral term, and it has spread. So you are a lad regardless of how you identify.
So thank you so much for joining us on our first tour. Really quickly, where can folks find each of us? Lucy, let's go ahead and start with you.
I'm on Twitter and Twitch. Same username, Lucy James Games. I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays usually. I am thinking, well, actually, this Thursday we'll not be streaming because Spider-Man is out, but it is also the 20th anniversary of Lord of the Rings, so I would like to do some kind of special stream, maybe next Saturday, to celebrate 20 years of the Fellowship of the Ring, and I just feel like the Crypt Keeper saying that. But Lucy James Games on everything. Hopefully see you all there. I'll see you all on Tuesday.
Right on. Jake?
Jacob Deck on everything, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, OnlyFans,
Ooh,
let's go.
All right.
But I will be streaming tomorrow, actually, 7 to 9 a.m. I'm going to be streaming Smash Bros. I'm going to try to stream Smash Bros. Every Monday, 7 to 9, because I want to get better at that game. I'm already decent, but I want to get even better. So if you want to stop by, if you're good at Smash Bros. And you want to teach me a thing or two, please stop by, because I need I need some lessons. Real bad.
Right on. Tam?
Yeah, I'm at Twitch and Twitter at Tamoor H. I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Currently doing Tales of Arise as my main game, but we do a bunch of other things. We watch Crystal Maze. We'll do random. I made a meme on one episode or one stream. That was fun.
That was a good one.
So we just mess around and like have a good time.
And you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at ZachariasD. Also, all of our channels are linked here in the description for our channel. So if you missed it here, go ahead and click down there. But you can follow us. You can follow me here on Twitch and Twitter at ZachariasD. I stream Tuesdays and Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings. Right now, I'm playing through Psychonauts 2. But as we move into our Games of Shame, I'll probably start dedicating one of those days to streaming specifically stuff for lads. So go ahead and follow me there. Keep in mind, you can also always get to us at ladsontourteam@gmail.com. If you want to shoot us an email, let us know what you thought of the show. Let us know any feedback, good or bad. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 0. It was really nice to get this kicked off, and it was really nice to see so many familiar names and faces in the chat. So until next weekend, we're signing off. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week, and stay on tour.
Tell your friends about us.
Yeah,
Bye.
let your friends know.
Bye.
Bye.
I actually don't have like a ending live stream outro.
It's like jumping off a cliff.
It's just gonna
hard crash.